I'd like to introduce this great panel of women and a man to Collaboration for Greatness. I'd like to start with Mr. Irungu Houghton, our only gentleman in the panel, a great man, a man who supports women, a man who said today he didn't get the brief on the color of skirt he needed to wear. This is a man who has 3 heels. You know, we're doing heeled heels. A champion for collaboration. He has collaborative initiatives that deal with governments and bringing organizations together, and he'll tell us a little bit more about that. He has, in that area, he has brought national, regional, Pan-African, and international organizations to champion policy works that are important for championing social justice. He also has another hat, which I'm calling another heel, that actually does community work. He actually lives in an area called the Kilimani area. That's my area as well. And he has put the community together to hold the county government to task on how we can use our public spaces for residents and make it functional. And he's brought the community together to do work together that is beneficial for the community and championing social inclusion. And the third area is an area the UN Women Regional Director, Christine Musisi, is going to love. He's a champion for women. He's a man who's a champion for women. And he believes in women's empowerment and gender equality. Welcome, Irungu Houghton. The second person I'm going to introduce into the panel is a lady that many of you think you know, but you will know her today. Her name is Rosemary Odinga. Would you come up, Rosemary? A phenomenal woman, a woman not many people know about, but a woman who has been doing amazing things for a number of years. This lady looked back and thought, as women are doing affirmative action since the 80s and 90s, what is happening to the boy child? When these women are fully empowered and they're grown up, who are they marrying? An empowered man or a disempowered man? So she began to do work with boys, young boys, to empower them, to inspire them, to coach them, and to mentor them, so that when they grow up, they're really living up to their game. They're fulfilling their potential and purpose. She does this not just in Kenya, but in East Africa. She works with boys in high school, but also on top of that, she's a businesswoman and a leadership expert as well. Welcome, Rosemary. The third person I'd like to introduce to the delegates this afternoon is Miss Nancy Minor. Miss Nancy Minor, would you just stand and wave to the crowd? Now, Nancy is your regular face, right? How many agree she looks regular? Isn't it? We all look regular, yeah? But why I say that is this is a really, really, really phenomenal woman doing great, great things that you would actually otherwise not know. This is a woman who is an entrepreneur, a very, very successful businesswoman with a lot of real estate in her handbag, okay? And you know real estate comes with something. Senor, it comes with currency, yeah? So when I say real estate in a handbag, you can translate what that means, yeah? But she's not the typical face that when you look at her, you'd be thinking, oh, that woman is successful. That woman is, that word in the handbag, rich. The word is rich, okay? And why we have on the panel, remember our theme is healed heels. A lot of people miss out opportunities, even for investors to work with them, or people to coach them, or people to work with them, because they write off people because of how they look. She looks great, by the way. Doesn't she look great? She looks nice. But she's very humble, but has done very, very, very many things. And some of the reasons for her success are very strategic partnerships, which is what collaboration is about. Looking at the opportunities around you, looking at the connections, looking at the linkages, and connecting to those. And that's how you become great. Now that, she will tell us a little bit how that has worked for her, telling her personal stories, but then she has really mastered, instead of working on the small scale, how do you go big scale? And what do you need to do that? So please welcome Nancy. Okay, the fourth is Miss Karemi Kinoti, a wonderful woman, a person I personally admire, has done great work for Africa, for people, and for me. A woman who I think has a heart for Africa. I describe her as a Pan-Africanist because she really, really believes and champions the African in terms of, can Africans do what Africa needs? Can Africans be engaged in what Africa requires? And her life has been spent championing and influencing advocacy, tax justice, policies, things that are going to be able to open up the space for Africa to do business and to succeed and to do business the right way. She has been recognized as a fellow. Karemi, you will tell us about that. I don't want to miss it. But she has been recognized as a fellow in, what's that word? Chevening. Yeah, Chevening. I just wanted to make sure I got the pronunciation right. She's a Chevening fellow. This is a leadership platform for leaders all over the world. And she has done great things in her life. She is actually the head of Africa Division for Christian Aid UK. And even in her work, she's very instrumental in opening up the thinking of how development can be done. How can we change this for Africa? What does Africa require? Okay? And so she's very instrumental in opening up that space specifically to bring in market linkages, to look at partnerships, and to look at collaboration with strategic partners in the corporate and government sector. Please welcome Karemi Kinoti. And then last but not least at all is a young woman, a very passionate woman for young people. She works with artists, Mrs. Jerry Mwangi. Jerry, say hello. She's stuck. While she's getting unstuck, let me tell you a little bit about her. Okay, she's unstuck. Yeah? Welcome, Miss Jerry Mwangi. Jerry works for a company called Power 254. It's a platform that actually brings together young artists and musicians so that they can nurture their talent, they can fulfill their talent, they can optimize their talent. But most importantly, as they do that, she links them up with resources that they require, to be able to record the music, to bring out their art, everything, and to make sure they're doing it for a social good in the process. But on top of that, also she makes sure that they are not exploited. In Africa, the music industry is an industry that a lot of musicians get exploited because of copyrights and all those things. And so their platform is also responsible for making sure that that is not happening to their artists. Please welcome Ms. Jerry Mwangi. The format of this discussion is going to be such that we're going to hear a little bit about some insights on collaboration from the panelists. We'll open this out to the floor. We want to hear some insights from the floor. We want to look at what would Africa look like? What would we look like on a personal level in terms of development and growth? What would our communities look like if we were working together, if we had partnered, if we were collaborating? So put on those hats on and let us discuss that. It's going to be a very interactive session. We hope to close by exactly 4:45, latest 10 to 5, so that we can have a 10-minute refresher before Dr. Archer takes the platform to do a powerful transformational leadership session with us. What do you think are the mindsets that plague Africa as far as working together concerned? Irungu.
So first of all, just thank you very much for introducing me as a gentleman. Given the last couple of weeks or so, some of you may have worried that I'm no longer gentle, but I'm extremely gentle. Even when faced with walls that are preventing school children from accessing their playground. I think for Africa, Africa is no different from the rest of the world. By nature, human beings like to look good, we like to be safe most of the time, and we like to be, in our comfort zones. We are really creatures of a habit, and we tend to find it difficult to go into unpredictable spaces because we're not sure what's going to happen. And I think that's probably the basis upon which we don't see our lives being as full and as fully self-expressed and actualized as they could be, because we like to keep in these zones. And I think that's the case for most of us. Now, what we know from our lives is that it is in those moments when we take great big steps into the unknown that really we live. we really live powerfully in those spaces. Because if you look at any of the eulogies or the biographies of great people, they will always point to those moments in time when they actually outreached themselves. And I think that's what really our lives are meant for. They are really meant for expanding our sense of self and our sense of ability and capacity. And in order to do that, we have to be working with others.
Okay, great. In my experience with working around Africa, some of the things that I noticed along, working with the different countries and different people, irrespective of their sector and background, was a sort of scarcity mentality. An inward looking then, what can I have for now? How can I gain now? How can I get for me? How do we start to think differently about this? And what are the effects of thinking that way being on Africa? Karimi?
I think one of the challenges that we have had over time as a continent is a lack of self-esteem. When you're constantly told that you're poor or that you're put down in one way or the other, and I think it happens even at an individual level. Before you can reach your potential, you actually have to go through a process that says, I am worthy. I am a person of infinite and inherent worth and dignity. And I think that the challenge for us as Africans is both at an individual level, but also collectively, to say, we are people of significance. We are great. And I like the theme of this topic. We are great. Nobody should put you down, individually, collectively. And when we are working towards this greatness that is Africa, then you realize that it's not just about me and my family, that it remains at that level. It's actually about us collectively. Looking and harnessing whatever gifts and talents we have, individually and more broadly, in order to reach where we want to go. So it is about the mindset, just as we said, we started the morning saying, shifting that mindset from that sense of not being worthy, always being put down, to actually challenging and say, that's not me, that's not us as a people.
Okay, while you still hold the mic, you look at the basic unit of a family, yeah? God did not make us in isolation. He created a family for each one of us, irrespective of what that family setup looks like. There's no man or woman who lives in isolation. There's no baby who lives in isolation, yeah? So the basic unit of life is a family, and that means collaboration, honestly. These are the people you walk through life with, and you don't necessarily have to be the same. You could be different, but you use that setup for greatness, isn't it? Why then is it, if that is the most basic unit, what is the disconnect? Where is there a challenge in exploding it outward to the communities and to the continent?
In my view, it is that narrow thinking, even at the family level. What are parents, generally speaking, interested in? You're interested in your child doing well in school, maybe becoming a doctor or a teacher and so on. But I think if the family, as you're saying, saw themselves as part and parcel of a wider community, a wider society, looking beyond just the interests, the immediate interests, if you like, of that family. Yes, you want the family to do well, or the children to do well, but actually to do well in order to do what? Is it so that they can join the middle class and enjoy all the perks that go with being middle class? Or what is it? Is it to contribute to this continent beyond some of those very narrow interests, in my view? And I think that when we sort of expand our thinking and even our role, since you've talked about families, our role as parents, our role even as children, that it's beyond just getting a good education and a good job, you know, and having a nice house or whatever else it is. To actually see it is about bringing others to that place as well and connecting with others. So yes, families connecting with families, communities connecting with communities. And also redefining what we mean by community. Because I think, let us be honest with ourselves, when we think about our communities, our ethnic community, our region, or whatever, how difficult is it, leave alone talk about Africa, how difficult is it for us to become a nation?
Yeah, I think you have a very, very important point, and I'll come back to that, especially with the flow, to come back to that point. But I'd like to go to Nancy a little bit and tie in a question that came up in the morning from Lillian. Is Lillian still in the room? Okay. Lillian had brought up a question about the setup that we have in most African countries, which is women following, you know, in the social setting. They're taught to be followers, and then in the workplace, which could also be in the marketplace, they then have to come and find how do they switch that now to be a leader and to be doing. How did you go about that in your life as a woman in this cultural setting and to become a very successful businesswoman who is married with 2 children? That means, you know, you've had to deal with the expectations of maybe culture and society. How have you done that? And then how have you built your businesses to become great?
One thing I did as I was growing up, I did not like our culture, in that most of it was very negative. And anything that is negative since I was a child, my dad taught me how to put it away. And culture is good and bad, but some of the things that we carry with our culture has a lot of baggage. And it's always sidelining, and sidelining especially women. So one aspect I've always been in is that I've always said anywhere I go, whatever I do, if I'm being sidelined, or even a child is being sidelined, a society is judged according to the people who are weak. If women are treated in a bad way, that's the way a society is judged. If children are treated in a bad way, that's the way a society is judged. A society is not judged according to the strength of the people who are strong. It's who we take care of. And that's one thing, at least my dad and my mom were able to ingrain in me. They taught me, and I remember as young as 8 years old, my dad used to pull me, and we go to work with him. He would have even development sites, and I was always behind him. And I've always had a very inquisitive mind. And I've always he ingrained so much about hard work. He always talked about hard work, and I wanted to see it practically. So I always followed him wherever he went and whatever he did. I remember anytime we closed school, he always taught me, and even my siblings, we all had duties. We all had to go to his office, either you're doing filing, or you're cooking for him tea, or you're cleaning his office. We all had a role in his office. And from there, that's what I was able to cultivate, a positive attitude. And I was able to know that there was nothing like a boy or a girl, because I remember so many of my relatives, the girls were always being told that they have to stay home. But that's one thing my dad never did. And that's the way I have been able to I was able to get guts, and even to go far. I don't fear anything, and I believe that I can do anything. I can even be the president of Kenya.
Great. But what is interesting, please keep the mic. I want to ask, I don't know if there's an interesting thing that's coming out here. The role of men. Because you hear her saying, not my mother encouraging me, which she did, I'm sure, but the role of the father, saying that despite the culture saying this is what I, your father, believe you can be. Do you think that played a role in who you are today, or would it have been different if your father wasn't doing what he did? Do you think there could have been a difference?
Yes, it played a very big role. I was able to know that there's somebody holding my hand. I was able to have the strength and the guts. Actually, even people would try and bully me wherever I went, and I always used to tell them, I'll tell my dad.
Did it make
And
a
everyone
difference?
kept away.
Great.
Yes.
Did it make a difference that it was a male figure?
Yes.
Because your mother could have done the same thing. Would it have had the same impact?
You know, it's very interesting how my dad had it, and the way my mom had the culture, the baggage of culture, that women are supposed to be at home. But my dad didn't have it. So my mom always used to say the girls should do this, but my dad always used to say the boys should do this. But I had a lot of energy, and I was very inquisitive. There's no way I was gonna sit back. I remember when I was a young girl, I really used to fight it. And even I would fight the boys. I would fight the boys even in my family. Anytime they brought any negative energy, I remember very well. I kept them away from me.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about how you built your businesses. This is a woman I know, and I know that she has tried every business almost that exists. She has failed severally, but she has picked her pieces and continued to go up. Can you tell us a little bit how you did that? And how you never tired?
Very interesting journey. Actually, my dad encouraged me. I went to the university. Education was very important to him. And I remember after that, I decided I wanted my own line. Because he always used to tell me that he was born in a poor family and he was able to make it. So he always used to challenge us and ask us, if I didn't have, what would you have? So I remember I actually went, I was employed, I was in the corporate world, but then I had given myself a certain time. I worked for about 3-4 years, and after that I resigned. And as I was resigning, I did not know where I was going, but I had a bag of business in my mind. And I got out, and I started a small shop, whereby I started selling beauty products. It failed, it didn't work. I mean, in a day I would get like 2,000 or 3,000. I was like, you know what, this is not my line. So I did it for about 8 months, 1 year, and I closed shop. Not closing shop, I changed business. I did not close shop. After that, I became a Safaricom dealer. The Safaricom dealership was very good, and I learned a lot from it. But there was a lot of undercutting. And the undercutting was not fair. So I realized, still, this is not for me. I moved on again. I closed. I sold the business. I didn't close that one. I actually sold it. And I sold it to a Somali, and I got good money for it. And after that, I started doing technology. I was selling computers. And from the computers, I realized I had customers. And I had some special customers who always used to come and buy products from me. And I was very inquisitive of the things that they do. And they became my customers for about 3-4 years. I always used to supply them the products. And from there, I created a rapport with them. And I was able to ask them what they do. And since I had a background of real estate in my mind, they actually told me that they build, and they're building homes and apartments. But I asked them if I can join them, and what would it be if I would join them by doing something. So they told me there's no space. They've already developed they've come up with the projects, and if I get something to do, I can actually do with them. So I sat down, I studied, I listened to them attentively, I listened, I followed them, I created rapport. Every day I was with them. Until now, they were just, anytime they saw me, they're like, oh no, she's here. Can you guys try and give her something to do? But I knew what I really wanted. I knew, because anytime I always used to pray to God to open my eyes and to show me that big thing that I'm supposed to do. So I actually saw in the group, because they're young entrepreneur young men who actually come up with projects and they sell them.
So you were not scared to go into business with men?
No, I wasn't scared. I had tried doing business with women, and I was not able to, it was not successful.
Why were you not able to?
The challenges, women came with a lot of baggage. when you tell them, sorry, I'm so sorry, but it's a fact.
Yeah, it's important to decipher these things, yes. Go ahead.
So what happened, anytime I called women, you guys, let's do this. And I'm one person, when I start something, I just move. You know, I just move.
Mm-hmm.
I move and I move very, very fast. If you want to join me, let's go.
So what were the challenges with the women? In terms of what were they saying?
Yes, the women were scared of taking the risks.
So scared of taking risks.
They were really scared of taking the risks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also had the baggage of culture. They were seen like this is too big for them.
So not believing that they're worth a big thing?
Yes. In fact, they kept asking me, this is too big. How are we going to do it? And I'm like, if men are able to do it, why can't we do it? And when we do it together, it even becomes smaller. But they never saw that.
So how were the conversations with men vis-a-vis? So when you went to work with the men and they would put in big ideas, how would that be?
In fact, when I went to work with men, they were asking me, okay, what space do you want? And I was able to actually get my space from them.
And the ideas, are they limited? Do they fear ideas?
No. Yes.
So there's a big difference in the way women would see big ideas vis-a-vis the way men would. And do you think cultural influence could be a contributor to that? Okay. The cultural background could be a contributor to that. So maybe give the mic to Rosemary. Let's listen to her a little bit. Rosemary, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of people know you.
Sorry, before we proceed, I want to just clap for your dad because...
Yeah, let's give her dad a clap.
I'd like to know his name.
Yes. So a lot of people know you, and a lot of people would think that when they see Rosemary, they're seeing politics. You know, I mean, because your father is a public figure. But can you tell the room a little bit about Rosemary, and then dive in a little bit to the work that you're doing with the boys?
That is so unfair.
Oh, really?
That is really so unfair.
How many guys want to know a little bit about Rosemary? I think there's quite a little bit of hands.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I think I can say of everybody in our home, I'm the one person who's not on social media actively. The one person who's very, I think, shy. And today Nyakan brought me out here and she's asked me to speak about myself. So it's difficult. I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters. And I also run a foundation called ROCK. We have a school in Kibera. And we also interact with students, high school students from all over East Africa. We have a sports festival that's annual. And my passion, I like farming. I'm actually a snail farmer. Yes.
So if I didn't ask that question, would you know she's a snail farmer?
Yes. Snails. And explain. That's actually a challenge to you in this room to go and find out about heliculture. But it's very common in West Africa and in Europe. And what I learned about snail farming is that unlike other animals that we have, first of all, snails are like shrimp. Those of you who eat seafood, shrimp, and they have texture of a mushroom or gizzards, if you've ever eaten mushroom or gizzards. Now, snails, they don't get sick, so you don't need to get a vet to come and take care of your animal. And then the species we have here, they lay eggs between 300 to 500 eggs, one snail, twice a year. And then you don't need a big, huge room, so it's something that you can do in your house or in a small room, and they will multiply and multiply and multiply and multiply.
Would you sell the snails?
Yes. They're also, by the way, every part of the snail has value, because the shell, you use it to crush and you can feed the chicken feed. You can use the meat of the snail itself is actually protein. It's one of the best sources of protein. And then, believe it or not, the slime that everyone is so weary about is actually used for skin treatment. It's very good for skin treatment. So yes, that is what I enjoy doing. That is my passion, and I would have loved to get more people interested in this heliculture, because it's another source of income as well, and it's not expensive to do. And so at least let me throw that bug into your mind there. So that's who Rosemary is.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Rosemary. Could you tell us a little bit about how you started to work with boys? When did you start, and what led you at that time to start working with boys? And then what's the vision you see? What's the end game that you see, that perfect picture that you're trying to paint? What does it look like?
Okay, so my first interaction with the young men that I mentor, they're actually the ones who came to look for me. And it was a rugby team, Upper Hill School rugby team. And they asked if I could be their patron. They make jokes and call me patroness. And I looked at them and I said, rugby? Me? Rugby? What will I tell you boys? They insisted, no, come. So one day I said, okay, fine, at least let me go and see what the young men are interested in knowing. And when I got there, they needed support for school kids, getting to place, and I thought, this is easy. I can just help them purchase some things. But when you come to support the boys and hear them cheering and everything, then they start asking you questions. They start asking you questions about teenage boys, girls, They start asking, so when a girl tells you that she doesn't want to talk to you, it usually means, you have to keep on forcing and trying, right? Then I'll tell them, no. If she says she's not interested, then she's not interested. She might be shy. And then they start asking questions about sexuality. They start asking questions about, their future, because some of them don't know how life is outside of school, subjects that they should choose. And then they start asking questions about just life in general, religion and things like that. So before I knew it, I was actually now seeing that there's a gap. Because when we were in school, girls are taught from birth how you're supposed to sit, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to cook, how you're supposed to do everything. You're actually trained from the time you're born, even laughing. Don't laugh, ha 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 ha. You're taught this is the way a lady laughs, and all of that stuff. But boys are actually, they're actually not emancipated. They're actually just left to their own devices. They're told to go for sports programs, and when they go for sports programs and the young man is hurt and he's just told, jikaza kiume, wacha kulialia, anaongea sana, nyamaza wewe, so they never get to express themselves. Lo behold, these are the young men who end up coming and working with the women who have been empowered, for example.
Okay, so you're collaborating with institutions to bring a diversified way of thinking, exchange of skills, knowledge.
Institutions, government, community leaders, for example, like church leadership. Okay. So we have everybody involved during these organizations, and teachers. Okay.
So before, I just want to take the mics. I hope that the mics can go to the floor briefly, or the hands can start coming up. But what I want to ask Jerry, just briefly before we go to the floor, is what was the frustration that led you to bring in artists? And what is the vision that you have by bringing in this platform that is connecting them to the investors, or the people who are investing in their lives and themselves with their talent?
Thank you, Jen. I think our frustration is mainly for the low-income youth, or rather generally the people that come from low-income areas. Most of these people you have seen either did not get the opportunity to complete school for one reason or another. Either they were put aside so that another one of their siblings could go to school, or there were greater problems. They just didn't have money to proceed with school, and that could be at any level, lower primary, upper primary, or high school or college. And as such, they're not what we would call employable, because they don't have the papers that we use to employ them. But what we have found is that they're very creative, And with that creativity, they're able to produce stuff that can actually earn them good money. And by this I mean photographers, I mean filmmakers, scriptwriters, poets, graffiti artists, musicians, and they're able to put out their work that can be sold and they can make some money. So it's not so much that they have papers that can prove that they can do these things, but if they can make for you a glass and you can use it, why do you need to see the papers that prove that they can do that? Don't you need to see the glass that they have made, right? If they can write music or do poetry, it's what you need to hear, it's what you need to see, it's stuff that you interact with, it's bracelets we wear, it's shoes we wear, it's sweaters and all these fashion-like things that are not your usual clothes or whatever it is. So because of that, we saw that they're able to do these kinds of things, and we saw that if we give them space from which they can develop by way of trainings, through workshops and other inspiration talks, then you continue to empower them. First of all, that thing of changing mindsets, you start to empower them to know that, yeah, I can actually make money if I do this. You start to make them to believe in themselves, to be confident enough to pick up that thing that they have made and sell it to the person next to them and say, you can make money, and they get paid for it. Then they come and see other people who have actually done it and are actually making a living out of the stuff they do. And then they're able to be encouraged and get confidence in their skill and in their talent. But also through the trainings, they become better at it. They meet people who do either similar things or different kinds of things and are making it. And they see that there's opportunity for them, and they stop despairing, thinking that because I didn't go to high school, because I didn't go to college, then I can't, nothing much can come out of me.
Okay. Great. I'd like to now involve the floor. I hope that you have had a nice time to listen and also to digest, but I'd like to ask the delegates, where do you think we are as a country, as a people, as far as how we work? What's our strategy? What do you find that we're doing a lot as far as how we're working, whether individually, as a community, in families? What's the attitude that is, or the process that we use mostly? Shalom? Yes, over there. Shalom, you're next.
Okay. The strategy that you're using is more of an individualism kind of scheme that, for example, Kenya and Africa, that's what I would really like to talk about, because actually over lunch hour we had a quite informative discussion with a group people, and came to realize really some of the problems that indeed happen. For example, I can give an illustration that was given of a farmer, a large-scale farmer, because maybe his crops were doing better than maybe the others, and he brought in competition to the other large companies. What they did was to spray, to spray his crops such that he will be able to not harvest. Such is the kind of thing that is happening. The middlemen in the farmers who are really affecting them in the healthcare industry, simply because you've come up with a drug that is deemed effective, that might affect the healthcare industry, you're shut down. And that is the reality of what is happening on the ground. And my question comes in, what can we do to gain collaboration from our individual perspective? Because maybe I have an innovative idea, but I know if I raise it out, I might be found dead tomorrow.
Okay.
And this is the reality of what is happening.
That is great, that is great. Maybe someone pass the mic quickly this side. Anyone else? Can I see the hands?
I'll agree with what she's saying about the individualistic strategy. There's what is the opposite of undercover? There is what is happening with plan, and then without knowing, unconsciously, there's a strategy that's going on undercover, so to speak. For every woman who's succeeding and surviving, the circumstances which she has gone through are affecting what ends up happening. So we are disempowering, and I like what Rosemary is doing, because we are disempowering men without necessarily having set out to do so. So for every struggle I've had with a man, then I try to set up my son, either not to be that kind of man, and my strategy doesn't work because it's born out of bitterness. So I'd say we have two strategies working. The one we are conscious of and we get in theory and when we read or when we get exposed to conferences, and then there is the unconscious one. As Nancy was saying, the baggage that we carry is a strategy that is affecting what we do right now, right here, as far as collaboration is concerned.
And what would life be? Yes.
Also, I'm a business person, so what you ladies are talking about is sabotaging your business ideas. And one thing that I've learned is that man or woman, if you have a good idea, there likely are some people who are going to try and sabotage you for various reasons. Either they don't believe in your ideology, or they think that whatever reason, I can come up with many of them. But the thing that I found was most important is building networks. So, and then more important than that is not giving up. So you've just been hit down. Get ready for that. If you're going to be a business person, people are always going to hit you down. But always make sure that you build networks. Don't give up, build networks, and with those networks now you'll find that there are people who are like-minded that they can tell you how to overcome such obstacles. But be prepared for them is what I'd like to say, and don't give up.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to touch on a little couple of things. One is, first of all, it may seem strange, but I think some of the things we're discussing also impact on men as well. Huh? So if we start off with an appreciation for power and privilege, which essentially is what, is how society is layered. That power and privilege, depending on who you are in society, which class you come from, which gender you are, which ethnic group you are, relationship to the ethnic group that's in power, it will impact on you differently. And I think understanding power and privilege for me has always helped me to understand not only my own role in terms of society and the power and privilege I may have as a male, as a middle-class male, and as somebody who was able to go to university and find a career focus. But that it also, what it does on the other side is it helps to keep people small. It helps keep people risk adverse. It helps to keep people feeling that having a great idea and not sharing it is a safe space to be. But coming back to the person who spoke a minute ago, consider that having a great idea, a really powerful idea, and sitting on it is like being dead anyway. Right? Because the consequence is the same. Right? It's like people who have wonderful ideas and say, I can't share this, I can't speak about this, because if I do it, somebody will steal it. And then the question is, so what are you doing with it? Right? So I think the space that we have to think about is really how do we create, bridges and corridors for people who want to work together to be able to do so. So go out and have a life that continues to inspire and motivate you. And as you talk to others, that will come across naturally. You won't even have to look for the language. The Martin Luther King speeches, all the wonderful speeches out, you won't need that. Consider that actually power lies not in what you say, but in how people hear you. You know what it's like? Somebody who speaks very powerfully, but you know that person has no integrity, right? Or what we do a lot here is we listen to somebody looking to trip them over. Like, I am sure there was an interest there. Right? I'm sure there was an interest there. Rather than actually looking to get some of that energy to be able to do great things ourselves. So these are the two things I think that have really helped me in terms of building bridges and coalitions.
But maybe to the rest of the panel, and maybe you could come back to you, Irungu, anyone on the panel can take this. How, as we become leaders who are taking Africa to the next level, how do we break these barriers and these mindsets to become mindsets that are open enough for collaboration, because that is the key for greatness. How do we do that? Because if you look at the scale at which this mindset has plagued Africa, it's not business as usual now. Something needs to be done about it. And I'd like to hear from the floor, what ideas do you have that we can break these mindsets where we say, I want to do business with this gentleman because I think he's that. Even without having talked to the person before, you have created a mindset that is now limiting you and limiting the opportunities that otherwise you would have had for greatness. How do we go about mitigating those? The floor and the panel.
Let me say this. I think we need to know that, and somebody said it earlier, I think it was Christine, that we will never be great on our own as we would if we were together. So if a musician has a song, or a songwriter has a great song they've written, it is not a song until it is sung. It is not really a song until the people who play the piano, who put the keyboard, who play the interludes are put together. And that is the power of collaboration. Then it becomes something productive. So the moment we know we have something great to offer, by myself, I say Njeri has something, this great thing she has to offer. But if I do not speak with other people who, let me take an example of this conference. This platform that has been provided, June sat by herself and decided she wanted to do this. But she had to speak to people who had to knit it together and make it possible. She spoke to all these panelists we've seen in the morning, that are here right now, that will be there tomorrow. She spoke to the people who provided the sound. She spoke to the hotel. All these collaborations came together so that we are able to be here. There was transport, there's accommodation, there's sound, there's light, there's all the people who have been here who have said the things that they've said. And that is the power of collaboration, because then we are able to cross those barriers. And if we think that by myself I'll be able to do this because then I'll be big and people will know me and I'll be called to countries and I'll be given so much money to do this, then we are so small-minded because we will not go far. But if we allow ourselves to network and to connect with other people, then our output is so much greater and our voice is so much louder and clearer even, because it's not just my voice. And if we plug in with our different messages, with the people who speak the same voice that we're trying to put out there, then our voices are definitely stronger and louder, and that's the way that we're able to change this, not just this country. For me, it starts here because I work with the youth in this country, but we start to change our country, our spaces, and largely at the end of the day, we start to change this world.
Let me add that back to how to change mindsets. I think that it's by doing, in the sense that, okay, let me speak for myself. I'm very particular about the kind of conferences I go to. I'm not interested in a conference where people are going to be complaining and lamenting and, and going on and on and on. But where is it that somebody has a great idea that creates a spark, and with that spark it creates a movement? So it's about saying, who are the people that I connect to? Who are the ones who are thinking like me? So that, this, as we've said before, is not something that you're keeping to yourself. I like what Irungu says, that if you're keeping it to yourself, it's as good as dead. But actually, if you look around this room, I'm sure, and we haven't even got through the day, I'm sure that you found that people that you've never met, people who are in a totally different sector to yours, actually there are lots of connections. You're probably also wondering, why haven't I met this person before? What is it that we can do together? And I think that it is in that movement that, that mindsets begin to change, that possibilities, you can see possibilities. Because actually, I've always liked to get into real estate. Don't know how you do it. Here I've met Nancy, and you move on like that. And with others, the same thing. So for me, collaboration is about connecting. Connecting because we have a common vision, not because it's, something good to do. There has to be a purpose to why we're connecting, why we're collaborating, why we're making these strategic linkages.
Yeah, there has to be a vision that we're all aspiring to, that we all believe in. Yeah. The floor, you're very quiet. I'd like to talk to a table there, Jane's table. Where's the mic? Take the mic there. That table over there. The reason I ask the mic to go to that table is I'd like to open this up wider. Okay, we're looking at collaborating as people. We're looking at collaborating as partners in whatever sector we're in. But how about continental, intercontinental collaboration? I'm sure our visitors there do not live in Africa. Do you live in Africa? Yeah? What are your thoughts on globalization, on connecting on an international platform? What are the possibilities?
My name is Carla, and I'm from the UK. I'm a trustee on the board of Christian Aid, and really delighted to be here. I grew up in South Africa, so I classify myself as an African, although I've been living in the UK for far too many years. I think collaboration is absolutely the heart of everything that we need to achieve. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is to start thinking a little bit broader than just the boundaries of Kenya, and start to think about what are the assets that you have got here that could resolve some of the points of pain that may exist in other countries. What are some of the real skills, so what are the resources, the minerals, what can you export from here that is really needed elsewhere, and likewise, what could be brought back into the country, and how can we have a brokerage and a network across the world that would facilitate that. And women are fantastic at doing this. And I'm already starting to see some fantastic collaboration from people, women in the Middle East, who are working with women in the US and women in the UK, and are starting to build businesses that go across the international divide. And that's exactly where technology plays a huge part, both in terms of mentoring and in terms of having a currency exchange or a way of doing business. So I think there's a lot of real power that is sitting in this room that could actually be taken to a new height outside the border of Kenya.
Thank you, thank you. And what are the possibilities for inter-regional trade? If you look at where Africa is going, and we're saying Africa is rising, what are the opportunities, and what are we doing about those opportunities? Are we going to take them piece by piece, considering that not every part of Africa is blessed in the exact same way, but are there synergies? What are your thoughts? Any hands? Yes, here.
Thank you. The African Union, I keep going back to the African Union, but they have a plan to double intra-Africa trade in the next 5 years. We have seen, the East African community coming together and beginning to work on railroads, banning the passport. Now you can actually go across the borders between Kenya, Uganda, and even Rwanda with just an ID card. So there are opportunities that are opening up, but what I'm wondering is whether we as ordinary people have understood the opportunity there is. We find that even though the customs laws have improved, women still don't know them, and they're still charged exorbitantly at the borders by officials and things like that. But I'm not going into that. What I'm saying is that Africa as a continent is beginning to open up, and we need to ensure that this information actually goes out so that we can find the opportunities to trade and collaborate on many things.
Okay. Thank you so much. And it is the way to go. Yes, Nathan.
Thank you very much. You mentioned about this problem of scarce mentality, beggar mentality, and of course the initiatives on the African continent, a lot of work. Africans know what they want. They have not properly known how to get there. And I think in this knowledge of what we want, we must have to define a few things. First of all, resolve these issues of conflict. Think of the Kenyans that had developed some collaboration with South Sudanese, or the Ugandans with Congolese, or the Congolese with Central Africans. Where is it now? As we talk now, people in northern Kenya, people in northern Uganda are suffering just because of what is happening in South Sudan. So this determination, commitment for Pan-African work that we have beyond our borders, I think should also be translated in how, for example, how the Kenyans feel or Ugandans feel when South Sudanese are feeling, and how are we committed to helping those people so that we expand our collaboration and Pan-Africanism spirit. Secondly, also to move away from this mentality, really of begging, thinking that we do not have the resources. You look at the African Union, beautiful building they're talking about. We have good ideas there. When they sit there, they can pontificate on anything. But when they say you put up a building, they must run to Chinese. Yet actually, if these 54 member states had contributed a certain amount of money, they would have built their own building. Give them the pride they need, give them the ownership they require. But you are just there still thinking that you are big, you have what is capacity, you have what is visions up to 2063, but the way you want to get there, you have not known. You still think you are very weak when actually you are very powerful. And this is at the highest level. So if you have this mentality at the highest level, what do you expect of the peasant? So these are some of the issues that if we must also continue working as leaders at different levels, we must also continue communicating with our heads of state, with those people who make decisions, that they have the power that they have not realized actually they have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Nathan. That was such a good input, and perhaps the panel can add on to that in terms of the kind of leadership we're seeing, because you're looking at Africa Union being one of the highest organs in terms of bilateral organizations within Africa, championing the development for Africa. And if that thinking is not translating at that level, then what then happens on the ground, at the grassroots? And what can we do about that? Perhaps Christine, who at least engages on a more regular basis than many others in this room, can probably give us some insights on what are the things you think that we need to do at that level that can start to influence and transform how we are thinking at that level so that it trickles down to the things we're doing. That's one. I'll take that out to the floor and here. But then again to the rest of the delegates, let's bring down this collaboration into partnerships. How many are you in a chama? How many are in a chama? Can you tell us what that chama has done? Just keep your hands up. Those who put their hands up, put them up. Look, Evelyn, I saw your hand up. Even Anne, I saw your hand up. Even the lady with the white scarf, I saw your hand up. And there. Where's the mic? Yeah, can you just pass the mic around? Just tell us your experience of the chama. Why did you join the chama? And what has chama done for you? Start with the lady on your left. Yeah, yeah. Why did you join the chama? What did it do for you?
Okay, I joined the chama. Basically, we first of all came together to build our homes. That was the main purpose. We wanted to be able to build our families, to build good marriages, because we looked around us and seen that many were falling apart. Eventually we grew. That was like 10 years ago. Eventually we grew and we decided to go beyond that because our main focus was the home. And we decided to empower ourselves so that many times we want to do things but we can't because of finances. And so we came up with different ways where we can empower each other financially. And many of us have been able to do different things that we desired and that we probably would not have been able to do if we were not in the chama because of other family obligations.
Exactly. So where you were not able to get a home on your own, you went into a group with other families and were able to pull resources, and each of you ended up in a home.
Yes.
So are you seeing the power of togetherness, of unity and collaboration? That's what we're talking about. Just pass the mic to the lady in the white. What made you join your chama?
Okay, we started chama. We were around 8 women with a common problem. We were having so many orphans who were related to us, and we had a challenge of paying school fees for them. So when we came together, we were doing this chama so that we can help ourselves pay school fees. So this chama of ours scaled up, and some organization came to our aid, and they even took us to Rwanda to see the initiatives that were happening to the orphans who were left in Rwanda after the genocide. And we came together and we were so happy because our children, those who were taken care of, actually got the education. And they have stood up now with the foundation of helping other children, and that thing is rolling out.
Do you think that you would have had that result if you did it alone?
No.
Any possibility that you could have done it?
No, because we were already stuck where we were.
So are we getting the power? Yes.
Yeah.
The mic there, please. Thank you very much. Let's take the mic there.
Yes, my name is Margaret Kisilu. I'm working for an organization called BD Partners with Christian Aid. And we identified so many orphans within the region that we work in. And then we thought, on our own, we cannot make it. So we mobilized these women, the caregivers, about 58 groups. And they had about 4,000 orphans. So we empowered these women groups, and we formed what we called SLAs, Saving and Loaning Associations. We trained them on how to save. They saved money, and because they were so poor, they had not kept a lot of money. They formed small boxes, little boxes, where they were putting the coins which they saved. So after some time, they started loaning themselves, and they got loans from those boxes, and they started doing small-scale businesses. And from the income that they got, they were able to support the orphans. Together with the program, we were able to support over 4,000 orphans and vulnerable children. And within a period of like 6 years, these poor guardians were able to raise like over 7 million Kenyan shillings, which has been circulating among those groups. Thank you very much.
Isn't it evident, the power of all of us? Isn't it evident? Collaboration is really the way. Now back to the panelists, and again the floor, please feel free to engage. I want to take collaboration to another angle, okay? If we're looking at the economics and we're looking at social transformation in Africa, what are some of the strategies that are definitely going to have to happen if we're going to end up being great as a continent? How do we do business and make sure that that business is scaled? How do we make sure that the economic growth of Africa is not just growing in trickling amounts, but it's growing in a multiplier effect? How do we go about that?
From my experience, there's one thing that the Asians are very good at. They go to a foreign country, and within no time, you will find that they conquer the country, and they are able to actually pick out their businesses. One thing I learned about them is that they have a doctrine called the spider web. What happens in the spider web? They decide, let's take an instance of the Indians who went to New York. Most of them are the ones who own the taxis in New York. And they went actually to that foreign country. They found other people doing that business. But they were able to actually take over New York through the cab business, and even they started being newspaper vendors. And after that, they were able even to start acquiring buildings and even the shops. Some of the shops, there are some certain areas in New York you go, they're the ones who own them. So if you look at this community, is that even an ant tries to get into the web, it's actually eliminated. So as Africans and as Kenyans, if we don't have that mentality, if we don't change the attitude of whereby we think one can do it, we're not going anywhere. We need to collaborate. We need to come in big numbers. Numbers that you know, the people that you know, and you trust each other. Because even partnerships are also very tricky. Most of the people even end up forming partnerships even in Kenya, and they end up crumbling after 1 or 2 years, especially when money comes on the table. So we need to come up with groups that who know where they're going, and big forces, like the Nigerians. The Nigerians have actually started doing it. And with that, they'll be able to build. You say that you want to buy land, or you say that you're going to open a factory, let it be. And let's start having ownership of our own products. We need to stop using products from outside. We need to stop using Caucasians or even the European products. Let's have ownership of what belongs to us. Let's produce cars. Let's build factories that we will have our own products. Because even you look at the Chinese and even the Indians, where they are coming from, they copied the Europeans. So why aren't we able to copy Because no matter what it is, it was started by somebody. So let's copy, let's build our own, let's eat our own, let it belong to us. And be proud of it.
Great, great, great. Great. So when we look in the room, how many of the people in the room are business people? Hands up. Great. How many of us are in government? Great. Yeah, development and in government. Okay? And how many are in the corporate? The rest of you are where? Where are the rest of you? Huh? Non-profits. How many are in non-profits? Oh, that's where you are. Great. So, I'd like us to speak about the strengths that each sector has. Somebody in not-for-profit, Gilberto, what are the strengths that not-for-profits have?
Oh, thank you. So I'm sorry before say something because my English is not good. I'm a Portuguese speaker, but I'll try to say something. I think you are very smart to understand what I would like to say. I think as a non-profit organizations, we have a lot of challenge. I can give my experience in Mozambique, for example.
No, I'm looking at the good things. What are the strong things?
Strong.
The strong ones, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I think it's collaboration. Collaboration between, when we make, for example, the network, we have a lot of networking. Just I'm talking about on my country. Networking. It's also the commitment of our work, because we know that we will not get profit. We will need to see change. So that's where a lot of
commitment to social change and strong networks.
Yes.
Anybody else in not-for-profit, Irungu? What are some of the strengths you see in the not-for-profit?
I mean, what I've enjoyed, I've been in that sector for now 20 years, what I've enjoyed most about that sector is really the space for people to be able to grow very quickly. In many other sectors, I get a sense that you actually have to spend 5 or 6 or 10 years before you're able to take on responsibility. What I've experienced even from first year was really being thrust in the middle of great responsibility and having to adapt and grow to be able to manage it. So I think that's one thing that's there. The second one, I think, is that the language and the values of social justice, of dignity, of empowerment, that language for us is natural, for the organizations that are working in a value-based culture. Now, not all non-profits have that, so it would be difficult to say that everybody is there. But I think for those organizations that are working through a vision of a society that is just, equal, and gives space for all to realize their own dreams, I think that's one thing that non-profits have.
Okay. Anyone else on the floor in a non-profit? Are you a non-profit? Okay. The mic there, please.
Okay, another strength for non-profits is the local knowledge, because the non-profits, they are down there, they have the linkages, and because they use participatory approaches, they interact with the people, so they know exactly what they need, and even the project that they establish, they respond to the need of the people.
Great. Where are the people in business? The people in business. Where? Yes, go ahead. Yes. The strengths.
Thank you.
Yes.
And also non-profits are able to pick up slack where government has left the ball. I'm very happy to be on this panel, and there's 2 special ladies here that I'd like to point out, Nancy and Jerry. Nancy invests in human capital, and Jerry invests in fixed assets. Now, when I go and I talk to the kids that I interact with and I ask them who their favorite actor is, they will pick an American actor. Their favorite sports player, they'll pick maybe someone in the European League. Nobody picks anybody from Kenya or Africa. And reason being is because in Africa, especially now I'll speak about East Africa, we do not invest in our human capital. If my friend Nancy here can go to the bank and get a loan to put up a multitude of apartments and stuff like that, why can't people from Power Africa say, hey, you know, we're putting up a play, we need a loan? You know, by the time the bank goes through all their paperwork, they're sent home, they're sent away. And in order for us to have these young people be somebody or do something better in society, we need to invest in, as Africa, in human capital, because this opens new channels of wealth for our people. And I think that is something that is very important for us to realize as Africa. And I did understand what you said, even in your French, English. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Rosemary. Somebody from the floor, I would like somebody to give me a strength in business and one strength in corporate. Could we have a show of hands? There, the mic, please.
I'm in business, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'll actually mention two strengths that are there in the business environment. One of them is the metal. For those of you who are in business, I know you know what I'm talking about. The kind of character that a business person is made of. It means do not give up. It means you're able to weather storms. It means that when the tsunami comes and knocks you down, you get up the next day and you proceed to your goal and your vision. So that's one of them, the metal. Then the other thing also is the space to create wealth. The wealth creation, which comes from that grassroots level. For me as an individual, when I get up and I put together a company that has not existed for the last 100 years or even 30 years, and I start it and grow it to a level where I have 20, 50 employees, that already has a mark on our GDP. So the wealth creation that the business space has.
Government. I think government was here and somewhere there. Hands for government. There we go, there and there.
The strength of government. I think government is the main employer. Government has the muscle, it has the money. And I think government, if we are able to collaborate with other sectors, like the private sector, like the NGO, then we can be able to achieve quite a lot. Thank you.
Okay. And the mic here to Christine, please. There. Let her have there.
Just to add on what my colleague has said, government is also known to have very good systems that can be followed, and that really show the direction, and everybody can get to know where you are going. We also have security in government because the system is well established and it's not so easy going to crumble down like can happen in a company or in a corporate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Before I start to wrap this up, I would like to welcome a great man of Kenya, Your Honorable, Your Excellency, Mr. Githinji. Would you stand up and just say hello to the crowd? This is the Deputy Governor for Kiambu County, a county that received the award for being the county that supports gender involvement in their leadership. Let's give them a hand. He has 5 of his women ministers represented in the room. Would you please stand? Let's give them a hand. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. So, as we were just speaking, I'm sure what you've heard from the group, you've seen the strengths in all the sectors. You've seen the government infrastructure, the resources, the money, isn't it? You've looked at development, the non-profits, they have a social network, strong networks. They have, I think another strength is in policy and research, isn't it? You have the business sector that is responsible for wealth creation and has money. Can you imagine if all these sectors came together to put up an agenda for development? What would that look like? What would that look like? Can you take a few seconds to think about what that would look like? I think it would be great. And to the panel, Karemi, please, and you can be supported by Rosemary and Irungu as we close this session off. We have heard from the floor the challenges that are plaguing Africa in terms of the top leadership of Africa. You're looking at the Africa Union, one of the biggest organs of development within Africa, still having the kind of attitude and mindset that is not necessarily opening up the space for collaboration. Okay? What do you think we can do, either as individuals or as governments or as leaders of Africa, to change this?
Okay, I may not have an immediate answer to what we can do at the Africa Union level. However, ironically,
and that would represent our presidents, heads of states, the level, that same level.
Yes, what I was going to say is that quite ironically, the Africa Union has very progressive policies with regard to the vision for Africa. So I'd ask all of you, please read Agenda 2063. That is our agenda for the next 50 years. It's not an agenda of our heads of state, it's an agenda for the people of Africa. So at that very policy level, at that, the framework, if you like, I think it's in the right direction. The challenge is precisely what we've been talking about here, that we, are in our own sectors and we see things maybe just from our own sector. And when it is about relating to the other sectors, so government, the development NGOs, the private sector and so on, I feel that the linkages between these sectors is weak. So Africa is on the rise. That is very clear. The numbers in terms of economic growth, but the reality is that it is benefiting only a small minority. So there is a widening gap between the rich and the poor. So the agenda is very urgent because 1 billion Africans must benefit from the rich resources of this continent. And they will not do that with all due respect. I'm in the NGO sector myself, but with all due respect to the small projects that as NGOs we do that reach only a few people. If the private sector is the engine, is able to come up with solutions, as we discussed earlier, for our energy issues, power, for water and sanitation, for agriculture, and so on. It is clear that these two, plus of course as the various ministers have said, how government provides that overall infrastructure, that overall enabling environment that allows the development sector, that allows the private sector working together. And for me, when I say private sector, I'm looking more at social enterprises. I'm looking at enterprises that actually identify a need and look for a solution and how you scale that. Because for the millions of Africans, and there are literally hundreds of millions of unemployed coming out every year, we are in a serious problem. We need to create decent jobs. And those jobs means finding those jobs, finding the solutions to the water issues, to all the issues that we've talked about around development and why Africa cannot move to the next level Somebody has talked about wealth creation. I think we need to demystify that. You know, it's not a bad word, and I'm not here talking about, you know, some thinking. It is more around how do we create an enabling, a leveling ground where everyone can reach their full potential, that they're not held back by whatever the difficulties are. So very clearly, really important, and for me it's an urgent issue. It's a real urgent issue that we are collaborating, much beyond, I think even deeper than what we've actually been talking about today.
Thank you very much, Karemi. Maybe just tie off on that point, any panelists, and then I'll give you 1 minute each to have your final thoughts to the floor.
Okay. Before I proceed, I want to state that the views I'm about to express are purely my own and should not be attributed to any other individual. In my view, the leadership we suffer in Africa, I call it a disease of the superhero and the winner-take-it-all mentality. What am I trying to say? Is that our leaders lack accountability. And the reason why they lack accountability is because we as voters or wananchi, sometimes we don't allow them to make mistakes. If we allow or believe that the people who we choose as leaders are actually human beings like yourselves and ourselves, then we know that they're bound to make mistakes. And if we accept that they are human beings and they make mistakes, then I believe there'll be more accountability. So the question is, where does it come from? Does it come from our leaders at the top or at the bottom? There's a sense of responsibility, I imagine our leaders must have. Yes, I am the president, whatever it is, or whatever it is of this country or that country, whatever it is. And then you're pushing elections. I'm talking about Nigeria. Because possibly there's concern for terrorism, or possibly there's concern for that, you know, the incumbent might not come back. But if there's accountability and there's a sense of responsibility that we all take upon our shoulders, then I think Africans will be able to move forward, because it is actually all of us collaborating together and allowing the human beings who lead us to be human beings. And that, again, is my view, not of others.
Before I start, I'd like to also just follow on the vein of Rosemary to just say that the views I'm about to express are not my views, they are Rosemary's. Okay, light touch. 2 quick stories. On the conversation of the African Union headquarters. I happened to be at the AU at a time when that was being planned. And the Chief of Staff to His Excellency Alpha Konare was in a meeting that I was attending. He got very excited. And he said, "Come, Irungu, let me show you what the new AU headquarters will look like." And he pulled me out of his boss's, the chairperson's parlor, and took me to a lovely architectural diagram. It looks exactly like the building is right now. And he said to me, "Look what we've got the Chinese to do." Now, I'm generally a polite person, but sometimes my head gets ahead of my mouth. What I responded to very quickly was, "Your Excellency, if I had been asked by the Chinese what Africa needed, I would have asked for a railway between Accra and Dar es Salaam, not a building. Because that would even show up on a balance book somewhere in Beijing." And he was caught, and I could see genuinely his thing was like, oh. And what I realized in that moment is that actually these leaders that we see as being, you know, somehow, we position them, I think, as Rosemary is saying, as somehow these very knowledgeable, very wise people, are just ordinary people looking at opportunities and trying to, in most cases, trying to get the continent to move forward. Right? Second story. Minister of Justice in a country that I shall not name, a good friend of mine, Not seen him for about 6 years. He's now Minister of Justice. He is now responsible for all law enforcement and legislation related to human rights, governance, and the rule of law. In the room are about 300 people, and he is flying down from Nairobi to Mombasa for this conference. And he arrives with the Vice President, and they proceed to give their speech. And he reads the speech, which had a number of grammatical errors and actually even factual inconsistencies. And knowing the minister for who he was, I was quite surprised. He then read the speech, he thanked everybody, we broke for tea, he got back into the vehicle, and he flew back to Nairobi. And I sat there, and it really troubled me, you know? And I thought, here we have one of the smartest human rights lawyers and thinkers, a thought leader in the area of human rights and governance. But we have reduced him to an actor. The equivalent of somebody who reads a script written for him by somebody who is half his age, a great person also, but not with the experience base. He reads a speech to, I think it was something like 16 law enforcement agencies, including the Deputy Public Prosecutor, the Attorney General, the Inspector, it wasn't the Inspector General of Police those days, but the equivalent, and then does not stay for the next 3 days to provide leadership to the team. And what struck me there in two moments, one was, what does that leave the other leaders, what are they left with? But more importantly, what happens when you do that every day, 365 days if you're working full-time, for 4 or 5 years? What kind of a human being do you become when you go from somebody who used to conceptualize what Kenya would look like to somebody who reads somebody else's speeches? It's two stories. Now let me turn very quickly to another point. I'll leave you those. There is a terrible book called 48 Laws of Power. How many of you have read this book? Okay. It is a terrible book in my opinion, and I apologize if it is your favorite read of the month. Why? Because it essentially creates power as something that you do to others, and that there are no rules and there are no virtues and there are no vices. As manipulative, dishonest, and schematic that you can be, as scheming as you can be, that book will reward you with those 48 laws, right? And I think that's part of the problem that we have with leadership, is that we see power as things we do to other people. And coming back to the theme of this afternoon, we don't see power as essentially the most interesting source of power is the power that is within us. We seek to light fires under people to get them to work. So if you talk to managers, they say, oh, I have to light a fire under my employee to get them to work. But we don't think about lighting fires within them, right? We want them to jump up and down and hope that the performance will get better. But we actually don't know how to create that fire that we think we have in those people for them to actualize whatever dreams they have. So power within, for me, is a much more interesting concept. And then lastly, is the power with others. I'm dying for a book that has 48 laws of power with others, that leaves everybody visible, that leaves everybody appreciated, that leaves everybody playing to their strengths, and leaves all of us great because that which we've created could not have been achieved by ourselves individually. Now that's a book we need to write.
Thank you so much, Irungu. I assume that's your final word, isn't it? All right. So 1 minute to Nancy, Karemi, and Jerry. Rosemary, did you want 1 minute? You're good? You can add one more after the last. Yeah, just 1 minute.
Okay, I think we're here because, for me, we are activists. By activists, I mean we are active people, and we're here to discuss things that will then make us go and act those things out in our different spaces. So from government to where I work with the youth, with women, with children. So in those different spaces, we're here because we're seeking for ways in which we can be more effective. What this platform has done for us, we're talking about collaboration. What this platform has done for us is drawn us from our different spaces and put us together. So I implore us to make use of these 2 days that we're here to discuss what we can possibly do to make remarkable changes, changes that we cannot miss, changes that the world we live in will not miss. Because we met here, we discussed what we have discussed, and then we went and started acting out. And that's what I'm calling us activists. We started acting out the things that we are agreeing here, the things that we are not, we are deciding that this should be changed, the things that we are deciding that need to be done differently, that we go and be those things. And we work together, because that power of collaboration is what we are saying is very powerful. So I implore us that when we live here, we do not live just with the other person we rode with or we spent the evening with, but we live with connections of powerful collaborations that will make what you're doing, will put you on another level to be able to achieve so much more, because we already have discussed what the power of collaboration can do for us in our different spaces.
I would like to say that every woman is a leader. Forget about the title. Where you are, even in your family, even if, it doesn't matter. You have so much power to influence. To influence value systems that enable us to move forward. And as Jerry has just said, through your action. We talk about the only way that Africa will move forward is when it's united, it's peaceful, it's prosperous, it's integrated. That means all the 1 billion Africans, of which we have been told and we know that more than half are women. You can imagine if each of us was connecting with the other, what that means. We're building bridges, we're creating linkages, millions of us on the move, pulling others with us, others, as Rosemary has reminded us, include men. There's nothing that can stop us. The only thing that can stop us, or that is stopping us, if we haven't started already, is what's in our mind. Because our legs and our hands and our body generally does not move where the mind hasn't been. Let's collaborate.
Thank you, Karina.
I would like to take this for women especially. Please just put that baggage of culture down. Just discard it, throw it in the dustbin. Because some of the things that you're told about culture, you were not even there when they were being created, or whoever the writer was never left a script for you and said, hey, 21st century women, please use this script. Until you get out of there, you will not be able to change your attitude. Your attitude will always remain down there. And when others are going up, you're wondering how are they going up. You'll wonder how did they get there. But you are always bogged down by the things that are around you. Do not carry them. Just throw them away. Just collect yourself, change your mindset, change your attitude, evaluate yourself, be responsible for yourself, and look for the people who you can work together with. In this world, there are only two characters of people that I've come to learn with all the experience that I've gotten. There are those people who are there to help you, and you go with them to the next level. Then there are those ones who come to distract you and destroy you. Please, don't get attracted to the second group. Evaluate and look at yourself and be a person who also moves. Do not be in the second bracket, whereby you lay back and you wait for others to do things. Do not do that. And even as a parent, as a mother, and even as a father, please, let's encourage our children. Let's make them see the world in a bigger way. Let's stop being in Nairobi or being in Kiambu or being just in Kenya. Because we're not going to be competing. I'm not going to be competing as a child with somebody who's going to be in Nairobi for the next 10 years. They're going to be competing with children who are in China, who are in Brazil, who are in the US. So how will you keep letting your child just be down there? Let's have a wider scope. Let's change our thinking. Let's change our attitude.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, Rosemary, you can finalize.
I mean, everybody has pretty much said it all. Take home from this. When I actually came to this speaking engagement today, I wasn't sure what I was going to speak about and if it was going to be useful to the audience here. However, I can selfishly say that after listening to all of you and the panelists here, I feel empowered. I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel empowered. And in an effort for collaboration, I'd like to challenge you to what I have challenged myself, that before I leave here, I need at least 2 contacts of people who I never knew before I walked into this room, so that we can see how we can collaborate beyond today and in the future. And I'd like to issue the same challenge to everybody that is in this room. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What a better way to close it, isn't it? Yeah? Before we leave this place today, at least leave with a minimum of 2 people you hadn't known before that you can connect with, that you have got new linkages with, that you can collaborate with. Yeah? So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome me in clapping and celebrating this great panel here. Having done a great job. Thank you very, very much. We will move to the next session immediately. Because of time, Dr. Ron Archer will be doing a session on transformational leadership. And just before he comes on board, I'd like to invite the Deputy Governor just to say hello to the group for 2 minutes, and then we can proceed. Thank you very much. We can stay on the platform for just 1 second. Yeah?
I can stand here?
Yes, sure.
Oh, I'll stand here.
Sure.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would have loved to be here for the whole day today, but I had a few functions that I needed to attend. I had a group of coffee cooperatives from Gatondo, a number of societies that are getting together to form one major cooperative society that covers the whole sub-county. So that's not a big thing, so I thought since these are the hard-working farmers that we are looking to work with, I'd rather be there. And as women know, a lot of the hard work in our farms are done by women. A lot of our young men are getting a bit lost. And my challenge today was to the young men: get back to the farm, work hard, and support the family. But beyond that, I'm very excited to be here because this is a very important occasion. It's an occasion where we recognize the assets that we have in our county, in our continent. 50+1 of the people in the continent are women. And therefore, if we do not use that resource, we can only get 50% of what we are capable of. And we are capable of a lot. The whole world is looking up to Africa. The whole world is looking up to us to make sure that we make a difference in the future. So let us rise up, all of us. Let us give opportunities where it is opportunities that are lacking. Let us give opportunities in our minds to think differently so that we grow our very big resource that we have. I will welcome you to this meeting and let you know that you're going to really be challenged. Take the challenge positively. You're really going to be encouraged. Take the encouragement, and you're really going to be taken to another level. And this is not for you only. This is for all the women of Africa. So it's going to be your turn next to talk and impact a lot of other women wherever you go. So thank you very much, and I wish you a very good